Good morning and aloha, everyone. My name is Rob Hack. I'm on the board of the Hawaii Pacific Export Council. We are a local nonprofit here in Honolulu, and we're closely aligned with the U.S. Department of Commerce. All of our board members are volunteers, and we are vetted by the Department of Commerce and appointed by the Commerce Secretary to be on the board of the Hawaii Pacific Export Council for 3-year terms. I'm in my third term as a board member, and I'm the program coordinator for the HiSTEP grant that we received from DBET. And with that grant, we're able to put on these seminars and also do one-on-one company mentoring. In more normal times, these seminars would be live at Pier 2 at the Foreign Trade Zone, and we record them and put them on our YouTube channel. But for the past year, we've been doing these exclusively online webinars, and I see in the attendee list several names who have joined our seminars in the past. And if this is your first one, welcome, thank you. And I'd like to point you to our YouTube channel here, the archive I just mentioned. We have 80 some videos of these webinars going back a few years now with lots of different topics. I'll be referring to this list today because there's a few webinars that you should look back on if you're interested in product development, because I think that there's good information in a few of these webinars that are specifically related to product development. I mentioned a grant that we received from DBET, and I'd like to thank them very much for this grant that we have received for the past several years. It's called the Hawaii State Trade Expansion Program, or HiSTEP, and the STEP program is administered by SBA, the Small Business Administration in Washington, D.C., and they award these grants to various states in differing amounts of money. But Hawaii's been very fortunate, and I think has done a great job of helping small companies with exporting. And we've been able to get this grant now for several years running. So we'd like to thank SBA as well for this grant. I'd like to bring in Mark Ritchie from DBET, and he can explain just for a few minutes about the HiSTEP program in general, and then we'll start with some product development specific material. So Mark, please join us.
Great, thank you, Rob, and aloha, everyone. Yeah, my name is Mark Ritchie, and I'm a branch manager in DBET in the Business Development and Support Division there. And we are the ones that have, over the past 10 years, applied for and received the SBA grant as part of the State Trade Expansion Program. And our proposals, and this is developed over the years, is to have a program that has 3 different main components. And the first component of our HiSTEP program is sort of the export readiness program, which actually is the training that you're doing right now. And we have done a contract with the Hawaii Pacific Export Council to put on these training sessions that Rob is doing. And this is to help companies from an educational point of view. And really, you can be absolute beginners in exporting, or you can be an experienced exporter, because some of the topics that Rob deals with go into a lot of depth. And so companies can learn things even though they might be active exporters already. As part of the training, we also offer one-on-one business counseling, particularly around exporting. And in order to receive that counseling, which is free, the only thing you need to do is just register with us. And there's a registration button there. You can see that on the side menu on our website. And then the second component of the program, in other words, what we're using some of the grant money for, is to actually take groups of Hawaii companies into trade shows overseas and also on the US mainland if it's an international show. And one of the biggest shows we do, I think people know, and I think Nina, one of our guests here, who's going to be presenting, is the Tokyo International Gift Show, and we've taken like over 70 companies into that show in certain years. But then we also do other shows where it might just be 10 Hawaii companies or so. And what we do is we go in and we do the complete sort of booth build out, and then companies don't have to worry about doing a lot of that, and it's kind of a ready-made for them. And then we help them through the trade shows. We provide some translators and sort of other services around the trade shows. And so you can see that obviously with the pandemic, we've had to cancel, or we've done digital shows. We've tried to do workarounds, but hopefully as we see the light at the end of the tunnel of the pandemic, we will be actually going back into in-person trade shows where people actually get on a plane and go attend a trade show in a foreign country or on the US mainland. The third component is what we call sort of the company assistance, which is companies can apply for money to help with their export development costs. And we put out, we do it through an RFP method where you respond to the RFP, you give us your proposal, we have an evaluation committee. And what we're really looking for is to help companies further their export development plans. There's specific things mandated by SBA that we can pay for, and that includes such things as plane tickets for travel, actual booth space at a trade show, and a number of other associated costs. Also e-commerce, there's a lot of costs around setting up an e-commerce site that can be, the money can be used for as well now. What we're looking for on the individual company assistance part, we know some of these companies go into the trade shows that we are organizing, but also it's for other trade shows that's part of a company's export development plan. We are looking for companies to put some money into this as well. We always want companies to have skin in the game. For the individual company assistance, the minimum requirement for companies is to have at least $200,000 in revenue. And the reason we say that is it takes a lot of money to start an export development plan, and the payoff takes a little while. So we don't want companies that still are not financially viable enough to sort of get in over their head, going overseas and things. And that's about it. And happy maybe at the end of this webinar to answer any questions on the program specifically. But with that being said, I do want to mention, if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me, Mark Ritchie. I might be somewhere on the website, and then my colleague who actually runs the HiSTEP program. Back to you, Rob. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. While I have the web browser open here and sharing this screen, I'd just like to bring this up very quickly. This is the Hawaii Pacific Export Council website at hawaiiexportsupport.com. And on the left side, you can see upcoming events that we have. Just as a reminder, we have digital marketing on July 8th. That's a HiSTEP program. We have virtual trade shows on August 5th. That's also a HiSTEP program. And then an HPEC meeting, exporting to Vietnam on June 24th, later this month. So you can see all of that here. And then also the events are on the DBET website also. Just very briefly, I'll come back to this later. I wanted to show everybody the websites of our two panelists today. This is Angels by the Sea, Nina Tai's company, doing very well with product selling in Asia, particularly in Japan, and to tourists coming to Hawaii. And then the Hawaiian chip company is Jimmy Chan's company. We'll come back to these websites later in the program today. So what I'd like to do is go through a very brief presentation that I've put together on product development. As I mentioned, I'm the program manager for coordinator for the HiSTEP grant that we received from DBET for the Hawaii Pacific Export Council. But really my day job is sales and marketing, particularly in Asia. The name of my company is the Asia Sales Manager, and I do lots of product development for various companies, helping them with this. So I thought I would go through just a very brief presentation on general product development, and then ask some questions to our fantastic panelists today about their on the ground experience with product development. So I'm going to start off. If you've seen my marketing presentation, it's on our archive, but I took this from the marketing presentation, and it really, product development is a key component of marketing, but a very focused part of the marketing. So in marketing, we have the 4 Ps: product, price, place, and promotion. And these are tried and true. This isn't something that I invented. This is the American Marketing Association's Bible, if you will, on the 4 Ps. And the more that you start getting into product development, the more you'll come back to these 4 Ps routinely. What product development does is focus those 4 Ps into a sort of mission statement. I looked around for a good definition of product development, and I think that this one serves well. All of the definitions are relatively the same, using the same type of words, but I like this one a lot because I think that this is what I've done a lot during my career. The overall process of strategy, organization, concept generation, product and marketing plan creation, and commercialization of a new product. And I got this from entrepreneur.com, so thank you to them for that. There's 7 stages of product development. There's an organization called productplan.com where I took this from. Roughly, if you look up product development, you can find 5 steps, 6 steps, 7 steps, but essentially they all fit in here in this regard. And that all of these tasks need to be handled. So the first and foremost is finding the pain of the customer, finding the market pain that is going on, or a hole in the market where you think you can find a niche and put your product in there. So next we figure out, yes, there's pain here, but how do we quantify that? How many units can be sold? How much can they be sold for? What does it cost me to make this? And can I make money in this market? And again, this is just general product development. This so far has nothing to do with the internationalness of the exporting part of product development. So we conceptualize the product, what's going to be in the product, what are its attributes, its size, its weight, its cost, etc. Then we validate the solution by talking to customers, asking customers a lot of if questions. If we had this product at this cost and we could provide this much per month, per year, what have you, would you be interested in it? And how much would you pay for that? And we develop essentially a prototype or a minimum viable product. And we give it to the customers and let them test it. And there's this very important part is the ongoing iteration and taking customer feedback and building that feedback into the next generation of the product. Again, essentially, any product development textbook or plan that you look at will have roughly these 7 ideas, maybe in different words, but the same concepts are there. So now this is a key point for this webinar today, the international consideration. So we're talking about exporting. And again, let's define exporting to be very, very clear. Exporting from Hawaii does not include sending product to California or Oregon, or even Guam. Certainly not from Oahu to Maui or the Big Island to Oahu. Exporting is to a foreign country, Japan, Canada, Mexico, the EU, Korea, Singapore, what have you. So these are the things that we have to think about when we're doing our product development back here in the 7 stages of. We have to look at all of these issues and say, build them into our product. So first and foremost is the metric system. Once you get outside of US borders, you're going to be dealing with the metric system. And I see a lot of Hawaii companies fall down on this issue that we're still using the imperial system. And that's the British imperial system. It's old, it works, but we're the only country who uses it. Even in the UK, they don't fully understand the imperial system these days because they have fully switched to the metric system. So I bring this up because when you're dealing with your potential customers, distributors in foreign markets, they're going to be used to kilograms, meters, millimeters, these types of dimensions. And if you send them things in pounds and inches and feet and yards, by and large, they really have no idea what you're talking about. And there's a lot of room for error. The more that you can be metric oriented in your company and dealing with non-US companies, the easier it's going to be for everybody. And the more likely you will be successful because you will not have these communication problems and all of these other issues. Of course, when you're dealing with foreign countries, you're going to have other languages. Many of our companies in Hawaii are very interested in the Japanese market. When you're dealing with Japan, I find a lot of our Hawaii companies are still surprised that there's not a lot of English in Japan. And tourists that come here might not necessarily speak English very well or read English very well. The onus is on our companies to adapt to the customers. And therefore, we need to be focused on the language of the market where we're trying to develop these products. So simple things like product name translations, marketing literature. And I will point out back to the metric system that when we're attending trade shows or we're working with documents, say we're filing trademark applications in a foreign country, or we're going for product testing to be legal in a foreign country, everybody else in the world is based on A4 paper size, whereas in the US, we're focused on 8.5 by 11-inch letter size paper. So when we're formatting our documents for foreign use, we should be formatting them for A4 because it makes it much easier for people in foreign countries to deal with in terms of printing them out and filing them, what have you, because that's the only size paper they have. If you go to a store in Japan and you buy a ream of paper, it will be A4. There is no 8.5 by 11. These are the types of things we need to think about. Product labeling. How is that going to look? What is the language going to be used? What have you. Then there's several concepts we can look at here for just generally viewing the taste of the foreign market, the people in the foreign market. Let me go back very quickly, if I can, to the 4 Ps. Part of the place and promotional strategy and marketing will be looking for your target market segment. And again, I refer you back to our marketing in Japan or just international marketing webinar, where you can learn more about finding your target market segment. But the key point of the target market segment is understanding that Japan, all 120 million Japanese people are not your target market. Your target market is actually probably closer to 100,000 to 500,000 people in the market. And they have a demographic that is the very likely buyer of your product. It could be female, uh, making this up hypothetically, but female from age 30 to 45 with a certain amount of income, living in an urban environment with a certain type of education, what have you. That's your target market segment. And all of your marketing, literature, messaging, what have you, should be targeted at that target market segment and not just Japan, if Japan is your target geography. So when I'm talking about local flavor preferences, that it has to do with the style. It has to do with actually flavor. If you're a food manufacturer such as Jimmy Chan, there are local flavors that Japan might prefer compared to Hawaii. And even in Japan, there might be a difference between North and South Japan, such as there is in Vietnam or even in the United States. I think it's well understood that the diet in the North is different than the diet in the South. And so that's how we have to think about these things. There could be different distribution models in these countries that you're targeting, meaning one market may prefer dealing with a distributor that buys product from you and then resells it, whereas another market may prefer to have much more interaction with you, the Hawaii-based manufacturer. When you're dealing with food products, such as Jimmy does, or many of the people who are on this webinar today, we have to think about preservatives, ingredients, is it organic? Some countries are very focused on this, and certainly what is the shelf life? So if you're dealing with Japan, Japan is very anti-preservative. The Japanese version of the FDA really does not like a lot of the preservatives that are normal in the American market. So you have to build this into your product development and understand this ahead of time, and it'll save you a lot of money later. Also, packaging for appeal. How does it look? Is there a function to the packaging? In terms of maybe you're selling chocolates, or you're selling some types of creams or lotions, and the packaging can be as equally important in some markets as the product itself. So that's important to build in from the very beginning of the process. Shipping as well. I'll refer you back to recommend that our companies work with their logistics partners in the product development process and develop packaging that allows the product to be shipped in the way that you want it to be shipped, and it arrives in the customer's hands the way that you meant the product to arrive in their hands. So it could be more robust packaging, it could be red packaging, whatever is built into your product and the message you're trying to get across. Do not underestimate packaging, particularly if you're dealing with a country like Japan, who is very focused on packaging. Sizing of the product, Nina can address this later, how she handles this, but it's secret to anyone that sizing of clothes for the Japanese market would be different than if you're sizing clothes for Kansas. It's just a different body shapes and styles, and we need to take that into account so that we can't just have a one size fits all type of plan, in particular if we're working on a product for a very specific target market segment in a country like Japan. Color preferences. This is a big thing that Nina can address. There's colors in different countries mean different things, and throughout the year for various seasons, red in one country might be wonderful, whereas in another country it's not. But it's not just clothes, but it has to do with just packaging in general, what have you. So we'll talk a little bit about this later. I say local standards compliance. If for example, you made a type of machinery, you would want to know what is the voltage and the phase requirements for the, the market that you're selling into. A lot of people forget about Taiwan, Japan have earthquakes frequently. So many products have to be built with seismic limitations, how well the product lasts over time, being vibrated constantly or in earthquakes and what have you. Now, we don't have a lot of those types of manufacturers in Hawaii. But I bring this up because there may be certain things that are relevant to your product that are specific to the market you're interested in, such as humidity. Some people won't believe what I'm going to say, but it's actually not that humid in Hawaii. If you go to Singapore, for example, or parts of Vietnam or Thailand, or some markets like this where it's incredibly humid, almost 100% humidity all the time, and very, very warm. That affects products greatly. It affects packaging, it affects rubber seals, many different things. And so these are the types of things we need to think about and build into our product development. Of course, dimensions and weight are critical. They affect how a store might stock your product. And certainly it feeds into the shipping costs change dramatically, particularly if you're shipping by air for heavier and bigger products. Then I see a lot of our companies do not pay attention to inbound tariffs, customs, local taxes that might be levied upon their products once they arrive in that market. That's important to know. A free trade agreement with countries like Singapore or the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement greatly alleviates a lot of these tariffs. But if you're shipping textiles to Japan, for example, you might be shocked to find that you have some inbound duties there. And that's very important to understand. We talked a little bit about seasonality before, but the difference between spring, summer, winter, fall. For people in Hawaii, we don't think much about that, but in other parts of the world, and Japan is one of them, where the seasons affect greatly what is worn, what is eaten, the colors, etc. These are the types of things we need to build into our product development. Another thing I think that we have to focus on is the after sales service. After we've sold the product, how do we help the customer maintain the product and then hopefully buy more of that product in the future? So that includes potentially stocking spare parts or replacements in the country so that they can get those replacements very quickly. How do we handle any kind of a warranty claim? So for example, if we ship something from Hawaii to a customer on the other side of the world, and it arrives and it's not what the customer expects, or it's broken, or for whatever reason it leaked during shipping or became spoiled during shipping. How do we handle that? Because it's very expensive to just dispatch by FedEx some replacement. So building this into your product development plan ahead of time and understanding how you're going to attack these issues when they inevitably come about, that's very important. So again, another thing I think that compared to other markets in the world that we don't take as seriously as they do is recycling and disposability of products. Particularly in Japan. Japan takes this very seriously. Parts of the EU take this very, very seriously. So how do we build into our products this recyclability and disposability, and tell our customers how to get rid of the product or the casings or the packaging of the product? That's incredibly important. We talked earlier about messaging to the market and the target market segment, so I won't get into too much of that right now again, but I would also highlight pricing and currency. So let's say, for example, today we're selling a product for 100 US dollars. That would be, picking on Japan again, at 110 yen per dollar, where you can understand what the pricing is for that. But what happens if the pricing goes to 120 yen per dollar, or what happens if it's 150 yen per dollar? How does that affect your customer? Your customer now has a much more expensive product, at least in their mind, it feels much more expensive. So how does that affect your sales? And could you have built in some currency fluctuation stability to your product in the development process? These are things to think about. And of course, if you were buying product, raw materials from a foreign country, bringing them to Hawaii, adding value to those products and building something else, and then reshipping them out to a different country, you have to worry about the currency of the supplying company's currency. So again, this is just a small list of potential things that we have to focus on, but nonetheless, I think that I've seen many of our companies not paying attention to these things ahead of time and building it into their product development plans. Another simple thing I've talked about many times during our webinars, and I hope that Nina and Jimmy can give us some insight here, is I think that our companies tend to downplay the Hawaii-ness of the products. And I think our customers, particularly in Japan, Korea, increasingly China and elsewhere, they look to Hawaii for very fresh products. And I don't mean just food products, but the word Hawaii, the word aloha brings word association of very good feelings, blue skies, and water, and ocean, and waves, and clouds, and palm trees, and nice breezes. All of that comes to mind when people hear the words Hawaii and aloha, made in Hawaii with aloha. Our companies need to do a much better job of building this into their products and their product development plans. I put one slide from my marketing in Japan presentation here because packaging is hypercritical for the Japanese market, and it has to be built into the product development. Shipping, again, this to me is one of the areas where our local companies fall very flat in terms of planning this ahead of time. So, well, excuse me, we'll talk about this a bit more later with Jimmy and Nina. I give some examples here about shipping by air versus by ocean, and I truly believe that our companies need to be developing their products with the idea that they're going to ship pallets by ocean and stock in Japan when possible, or whatever your target market segment is, whether that's they're in Germany or they're in Brazil. We need to be getting product there in bulk as much as is possible and not shipping one item at a time by air because it's extremely expensive. I'll also jump in here and make a claim for trade shows. As Mark Ritchie explained earlier, that DBET essentially subsidizes several really great trade shows for Hawaii companies to join at a much reduced rate versus if they went on their own to that trade show. And trade shows, I think, are a critical function of the product development cycle. You can meet customers, you can meet distributors, you can see competition, you can ask a lot of the if questions that I talked about earlier, meaning if we had a product that did this and looked like that and could be sold for this amount of price, what would you pay for it, Mr. And Mrs. Customer? And trade shows are probably the single best way to get a lot of that done. So I strongly recommend our companies get involved in as many trade shows as possible. Even if you don't exhibit at the trade show, get there and go to them and walk around and just meet people. It's fantastic. I put this QR code on here just because I think our companies have to do a better job of getting with the QR code system that's very, very popular throughout Asia. This is a Hawaii visitor sales cycle model that I developed a few years ago, and I've seen it have great success when it's used properly. And I think that we build into our marketing plans this sales cycle. Product development is clearly a big part of this, and having this sales cycle built into your product development plan is very helpful. And I'm happy to discuss this at any time if anybody would like more details. I went through our list of webinars that I showed you on the YouTube archive for the Hawaii Pacific Export Council, and here's the general archive of all of the videos we have, but a few that I think are very much related to product development are also here. And I believe that you could learn a lot by just looking at those as well and taking some of the tips we bring up there. Now, I'm going to jump in and start asking questions to our wonderful panelists. Nina Tai. Hi, can you say hi to everybody and wave? Nina Tai is the owner of Angels by the Sea, and Jimmy Chan is here from. Are you on Nimitz Avenue today?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, his factory is over on Nimitz. That's the Hawaiian chip company. You've seen them. You've bitten into them. I hope you love them as much as I do, the Hawaiian chip company. So these two panelists have great success in terms of foreign tourist buyers, but then also selling their products in foreign markets. And I would say particularly Japan, but I'll let them speak for themselves. And then I'm going to go back to this slide with some of these issues and ask you some of these questions, but I'd just like your general comments first, and if you don't mind, I'll start with Nina. And Nina, you can give us a brief explanation of your company, what you sell, and what is your experience dealing with exporting. And then I'll come back and ask you more specific questions later.
Aloha, everyone. Aloha, Bob. Thank you for having me today. My name is Nina Tai. I'm the owner of and the designer of Angels by the Sea. So, Angels by the Sea Hawaii is a fashion brand, and we based in Waikiki, Honolulu, Hawaii. I started a company in 2010. So, this year is 11 years of retail, wholesale, and product development. So we do our own design.
Great. And how about Jimmy? Can you tell us just very briefly about the Hawaiian Chip Company and how long you've been doing this?
Yeah, so I started the Hawaiian Chip Company 20 years ago, 2000, and I've actually been trying to export since about 2008. So I appreciate your comments about great success, but I'm still in the trial phases of trying to figure it out. We've had our ups, which have been pretty good ups. We've also had our downs, and I'm happy to share those. But I think everything that you've listed there, it's stuff that we've experienced: product packaging problems to ingredient problems to even market share. Just understanding how that is. And ultimately, what it comes down to is that cycle, that visitor sales cycle that you talked about, and where we fit in. And I think that's where my company's at right now. We've figured out that we're still in the stage of cultivating, breaking into that visitor sales cycle, and concentrating on the tourists while they're here. But we still participate in the trade shows and all that, and I think that's a vital part of, just like how you said, even if you don't actively participate, visit them. So
Which of the sauces is the most popular in Japan?
so right now, it's kind of seasonal. So biggest customer, our biggest selling sauce had been the spicy barbecue sauce. You can see in the lower left-hand corner, second bottle from the left. And that's because we sell that every summer to Kuaina Burger, food service. So they use it as part of their menu. So they drive massive volume during the summer, but the rest of the year is pretty quiet. The sauce that has taken off in COVID is actually the sauce all the way on the right in that same bundle, our Lilikoi barbecue sauce. And again, that's another restaurant chain that seems to be driving those sales. But so far, we were in that restaurant chain from end of summer, and they shut down for a little while, and they just came back online. So
when you say it's seasonal, what does that mean exactly?
So my experience has been that they kind of like Kuaina Burger and some of the hotels and whatnot. They tend to categorize Hawaiian as being a summer product. So they'll launch seasonal menu items. So specifically at Kuaina Burger, they do a burger. They feature a burger for each of the Hawaiian islands. And our Kilauea Fire sauce is part of the Oahu burger. So they'll put it on special, promote the heck out of it, and then come fall they stop the promo and then move on to their other sales cycles of promotions.
Now, besides Japan, have you been exporting to other markets?
We've tested Australia. And every time we've we've gotten interest from other markets, and actually from a lot while at these trade shows in Japan, because they're international trade shows. So they're great opportunities to meet buyers from other countries. However, Japan seems to be the only place that we have a pathway for distribution. We have an exporter in Japan that can handle shipping. We have a consolidator here that can help us bundle our shipments with other companies to save on costs. We just don't have that same infrastructure set for the other countries at this time.
How did you find your distributor in Japan? I mean, yeah, in Japan. And then how did you find that consolidator here? Did they find you, or did you actually go looking for them?
So, they actually found us, and actually a lot of credit goes to Neil Arakaki from the Menehune Mac chocolate factory. He actually put together a group of food manufacturers, and we went to Japan in 2008, and participated in a trade show, and just it was just amazing seeing all the different products and whatnot, and then at that trade show, I was actually introduced to a distributor through Neil.
Which trade shows have you found useful? Do you go to TIGS or FoodX or any others?
So that first trade show that I went to was FoodX. That is also where we cultivated the relationship with Kuheinenberger. That was actually a 2-year process, meeting them, having them come verify that we're still around after a year, and then the next year finally putting in an order. We also often run into the same buyers at TIGS, the Tokyo International Gift Show. That's been a good show for us as well. We've participated in the FabX show. I think that one does all right. I've actually never been to the FabX show where our company sets up through our distributor. And there's a couple other smaller shows that we'll participate in here and there, like there's an ingredient show, there's a coffee show. But the main ones that I've actively participated in, where we've even set up our own booths, are the FoodX, and then of course the TIGS within the Hawaii, the DBET Hawaii Pavilion.
Great. Nina, how about you and Angels by the Sea? Have you found any trade shows to be particularly useful or not useful?
Actually, I have done the trade show, international trade show in Japan, and I also did a trade show in Orlando, Florida. That's actually the debate sponsor also. I also did in Magic Show in Las Vegas. So I just have a overlook, and I would like to share with everyone. Trade show is actually it's very expensive. Beside the booth, and also everything come with you're traveling, so we try to make the most of that. So for me as the owner, I can't actually my job, I cannot go a lot of trade show in Japan, and that's why I have the Tokyo Gift Show. Japanese is different. Japanese buyer is different with American buyers and European buyers, because they do not make the decision at the trade show. So sometimes they not write any order, and sometimes they get a lot of information. So I know that I have been doing the Tokyo Gift Show since 2015. Yeah, every year except just last year because COVID. So there is the result there, but I just want to share that it's not easy to see right away at the trade show. So some of the vendor could be they wander like in the middle in Japan, and they try to understand the Japanese buyers. I think the best, and I always try to advise everyone from my experience in 2016. I give out a lot of flyers. Yeah, before the trade show, I print out a lot of like the little flyer in Japanese and also in English, anything about our company. So when we came to Japan, every single customer passed by that, I giving out the information for them. it's amazing. Like you see Tokyo Gift Show in September, yeah, and then for every time around March, yeah, and April, the year after, those customers always come to Hawaii and contact us because I think Hawaii is very summery. A lot of product present for summer. So Japanese will always contact you, which is 4 months after September, which means February, maybe March, and they purchase the products for their summer. And and another thing, Tokyo Gift Show is not just Japanese buyer. I have so many buyer from Taiwan, from also from Korea, and from Guam. So I think Guam traveling, even Guam is from US, but however, the buyers live in Guam is very similar. They buy into similar with Hawaii because I never been to Guam, but like for what they share is similar like Hawaii, and that's a huge market for also for Hawaii products. So Guam buyer don't fly to Hawaii, but they fly to Japan. So I have a lot of international like non-Japanese buyer from Tokyo Gift Show, and I just want to share that.
No, that's very important. So thank you for bringing that up. Nina, I'd like to talk about your target market segment, because when I look at your website, and I invite our attendees to just bring up Hawaii.com, you can see for yourself. The target market segment is clearly younger people, definitely not my age, I guess. And I'm guessing it's mostly women, but I'd like to hear how do you decide and focus on your target market? What is your target market?
Yes, my target market is Japanese women from 25 to 45 years old, who from Japan traveling to Hawaii, who are Hawaii lover. Yeah. So and also when they traveling, they bring their family. So beside, that's why you can see beside the women, we also have the the fourth picture on the website right now. You see it's a couple matching of the clothing. Yeah, so for Japanese, that's very important. They love to have a one time, maybe in their probably one time when in their life, or one time memory with their partner, with their family. So they love to wear matching clothes and take the photo, and that is very important for them. So that's why you see the mother and the two little girls on the lanikai with the matching clothes.
That's very interesting. So but the clothes that are sold in the Japanese market, so the buyers come and they buy product from you and they take it back to Japan. These are not clothes that are meant for the Japanese winter. These are clearly summer clothes. Is that correct?
Yes, that is, that when I look at your list, yes, is this Hawaii is very summery clothes, and we try to also work with that. And for me, it's I do for different colors. Like what people love about Hawaii is you just talk about the color. Hawaii color is rainbow for me. Yeah, that's why all the clothes with very bright colors, and that's what my customer image about Hawaii. Sometimes very bright pink, coral, and anything related with the rainbow, like the blue of sky, the sand colors, and something very bright purple, yeah, at the hibiscus and the flowers. So that's what I noted that my customer love it. That's a good about. And if we changing, like for example, we testing the color, we have black and we have a gray that usually not the best selling in our company. So in the winter in Japan, we do a little slightly some design that they can wear inside and outside they can cover with their coat, the maybe jackets and the coats, and they still can feel a little Hawaii and without, too summery clothing.
Now, do you find any difference between the tastes of the customers in Japan versus Taiwan versus Korea versus locally here in Hawaii? Is there a difference in what you sell to those customers?
Yes, it is very different. All Asian is not the same. Yeah, so it's
Sure.
not the same market. I think the Japanese have a longer history that come to Hawaii, and they know a lot about Hawaii. So some Japanese, like they really know, what news, what going on in Hawaii. So they like to have the update, especially for the fashion brand. Like it's very, I have to update the print. Like I design my own prints with pineapple, with all the hibiscus, palm tree. So Japanese markets catch up very quickly. Yeah, they actually like all the time I have to change it. And for the Taiwan markets and Korea markets, they tend to like what they maybe probably is that they feel a little bit more on the flower side, more than the maybe the palm tree, maybe not as much as, for flower for the Taiwan market and also the Korea market. Besides that, Japanese love a lot of, for designing, they love a lot of ruffle. Like they have a lot of fabric on the dress. I don't know, for some reason. Yeah, they love, yeah. And they like long dress. They don't like short dress. So that's how image about the maxi dress on the beach in Hawaii. So that's it, a little bit, for small detail, but that's a little bit different.
Well, no, that's a big detail. That's a great insight. Nina, I'll ask you first, and then we'll go to Jimmy on packaging, because I found that dealing with Japanese customers, packaging can be very, very critical. And so, do you have any opinion on that? And how is that different from maybe packaging you use in just the local Hawaii market? Or is there no difference?
Yes, Pat, I agree. Japanese market are very focused on like the packaging, special. Sometimes, like for example, I have all my local retail location. The customer always like to have, because they buy a lot for gift. Yeah. So even in Japan too, they buy for gift. Yeah. So every packaging should be already ready to sell, already to give. Yeah, that's one thing. And I want to share, if you see my screen, this was actually my shopping bag. Yeah, I came out with long time ago. I designed this shopping bag. It's in the, actually this is the pineapple. This is one of my popular prints. And I put it on the bag, and this say Aloha. And then in the back say Angels by the Sea Hawaii. Yeah, it's my brand. And this one why I'm showing this, because this made by actually recycled paper, and I invest into the shopping bag because this very light to ship also. But for the Japanese, sometimes they actually, like when the people start to carry your bag, yeah, and because it's one side say aloha, so they feel like really, this is really Hawaii. And of course, one side is I want to promote my company, so I put the company from. But invest into packaging for Japanese. This is, the product. That's one thing very important. Like the product and the packaging always need to go together, because after I have this shopping bag, I just, before we can buy 15 cents, we save here, when the customer buys it, we just 15 cents. However, because this bag, the people love it so much, so they're willing to buy at the retail store. So because of that, when I export to Japan, so every single customer order, for example, if they order like maybe like limited amount, like I can see if one dress, I can at least have one bag like this, and I ship with the package. When they came to Japan, yeah, my wholesale customer, they have a retail store in Japan. So when they buy it, when they sell for their customer, they have this bag. And just because of that, this is the best advertising ever that I like to share. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you bring that up. And I would refer our attendees back to the Marketing in Japan webinar I pointed out on our archive, because I talk a lot about the omiyage concept and the packaging, and how a Japanese customer cannot just hand a gift to somebody without having some nice packaging on that. And Nina does a great job there. Jimmy, how about for Hawaiian Chip Company? How do you come up with your packaging? I know yours is obviously different because you have to have sealed bottles and sealed packages and what have you, but I'm just curious how you design your packaging and what goes into the product development part of your packaging.
So early on, we actually kind of allowed customer to dictate our packaging, saying, no, we like this sauce, but we want it in this bottle. And, you know, trying to accommodate that was just a little too challenging, especially for a small company like mine. So ultimately, what we ended up doing was just sending product in bulk to Japan and letting the end customer package it up, you know, with permission to use our logo and whatnot. But to package it up with the correct ingredients, statements, you know, like you talked about, all the information, you know, switching it to metric and all the stuff that's required on Japanese packaging that I wouldn't have on my packaging here. So that was kind of the biggest way to solve that. And at this point, now we just pretty much sell in bulk or as is. And our retail packaging, so, you know, I mentioned that we sell our barbecue sauce to these restaurants. The bottles that you saw in the picture are actually our retail packaging, but for in the United States. But in Japan, that's their restaurant food service size. So the you know, they don't buy it by the gallons. They want to buy it in smaller vessels, which happens to be our retail size. So that kind of works out. So therefore, the labeling and the packaging isn't an issue anymore. So for me to skirt around the problems with packaging and labeling and all that, we more or less just concentrate on food service, so that the end user is just a restaurant that's going to open the bag and whatnot. So at that point, it just becomes about trying to preserve the product the best. We've actually started to run into an issue with some of our bulk bags because I think some of our shipments get air freighted in. So that was causing problems with the packaging, not holding up to the air pressure. So we're actually in the process of making an adjustment for that, just so that the end consumer doesn't open a case and find all these open bags.
Sure. Have you had to do anything with translations of your labels that go on the sauce bottles or on the chip packaging?
Yeah, so what we've done is for special events, you know, another event that we'll do is you know, we did this Hankyu festival in Osaka, which was DBET sponsored, and you know, for the special events, what we were able to do was craft a temporary label and affix it over the existing information.
Okay.
But long term, I leave that up to the end consumer, to basically my distributor in Japan will repack, and then they become responsible for making sure that all that information is correct and compliant with Japanese law.
Great. How about the testing of the products to make them for lack of a better word, legal in Japan. Do you deal with that, or does your distributor do that?
I'm sorry, the what?
The testing of the products to make them viable products in the Japanese market, meaning legal.
So the biggest scrutiny that we faced is on the import, on the import side. So in order to get cleared as a food product for I guess export from here to Japan, it needs to clear customs, and they need to see all the ingredients. So you have to list all your ingredients, and not just as you would on your US labels, but you have to list basically your recipe, the precise amount of product in each bottle and vessel. We've actually run into problems because we've used like a seasoning, paprika, and one of the things in the paprika was silicone dioxide to just keep it free flowing, which is considered a natural agent here. But in Japan, it came under scrutiny, and it was to the point where it was acceptable, but they needed to know the particle size of the silicone dioxide. And trying to get that from a manufacturer here is like pulling teeth. But luckily, I knew somebody who was able to help me. And
Yeah.
Again, I've heard that they put in certain requirements, knowing what the U.S. spec on certain products is. So it almost helps eliminate, products from being imported. So that's one of the things you got to worry about with food service.
Great. And did you have to have the products tested in Japan, or did your distributor handle that?
So so actually yes. So actually on import of another product that we were doing, we were helping coordinate a ginger powder. They actually tested it, and found some trace bacteria and whatever that wouldn't have hit the radar here, but for over there, yeah, so we actually had to send stuff to a lab here after we made adjustments. I talked to the manufacturer about making adjustments and get it tested at a lab. So they basically told us specifically what it is they were looking for in that certain product. But we didn't hit that. We actually didn't hit that until we tried to actually bring the product in, and then it raised red flags. And from there, they let my distributor know, who conveyed it back to me, and we had to fix it. But otherwise, as far as my chips go and stuff like that, they may test it. We haven't been required to run a test, but in addition to the ingredient statement, we have to provide a process statement saying specifically, step by step, how we make our chips. And that does cause pause for a lot of companies, because it's like she's basically giving you my secret recipe.
Yeah, sure.
But at the end of the day, for me, I'm like, chips, it's slicing vegetables thin and putting in hot oil. It's not rocket science. But at the same time, especially for baked products, this and that, there are certain nuances that individual manufacturers will go through that they may not want to make public. So and again,
Understood.
It's not supposed to be public record, but giving it to anybody, there's a certain level of trust that you need. And
yeah, of course. Understood. I'll stay with you, Jimmy, and ask one more question, and then go to Nina. How do you handle, or maybe it's never happened to you, I hope it hasn't, but I think for most manufacturers, it happens that a shipment arrives in the foreign geography and something's wrong with it. It leaked, or it broke, or it's not what the customer expected. And then you have to replace that quickly, usually very expensive FedEx or UPS overnight shipment to the foreign market, and that costs a lot of money. How do you handle such things, and how do you build that into the process at the beginning so you have a plan to address such a thing, or do you just react to it as it happens?
So it's been mostly reactionary because again it's not the bulk of our business right now. So we don't we don't have enough resources at my company to necessarily build in the safety nets and whatnot. And ultimately that would come with volume. If we had enough volume to where we had inventory kept in Japan, then it'd be a little quicker and easier to address. But you're right, as at this point, in fact, the discussion I just had with my team this morning, because we're shipping out an emergency shipment of sauce, and not emergency because something went wrong, but just because Prince Hotel said, hey, you know what, we want to run a Hawaii special in 2 weeks, and we want 30 cases. And you got to get on it, and it's costing us more to get that special order out than it would for our regular customers here. So
Sure.
we got to build it into the cost. I think that's exactly what you said. We just gotta build it into the cost. And I just this morning we had that very discussion. We got to increase our prices, and I think the challenge had been trying to keep our prices low so that we can be competitive. Again, you had on your list shipping, big costs, import fees, big costs. So our margins are crazy, but we cannot afford as a small Hawaii manufacturer to give up even more margin because of all these things that we need to take care of. If it's not profitable, there's no sense we do it.
Right, I understand. Nina, I'll ask you the same question. How do you handle problems? Meaning maybe a customer buys a lot of product from you and you send it to Japan, for example, and then in Japan, the product arrives and some of it is not perfect according to the customer. How do you handle that kind of problem?
Yeah, I'm sure we all know Japanese customer is very particular. Yeah, so they could point out every single small thing from your products that maybe even when we look at, like for example, a little tiny slightly like this pineapple a little different with this pineapple. Like for example, I have a like the top and the pants matching, so they purchase together. However, the pineapple on the pen a little bit slightly because it's hand print, so the color is different with the pineapple on the top. And honestly, this is not about a big mistake, and it's not even a damage. However, like for me, because the Japanese customer, they're very loyal. As long they're happy, they keep coming back. Yeah, they buy from you. So for that question, usually I'm trying to first of all, I have to reply them very soon. Like they expecting, you have to handle it right away. So I talk to them, and if there's something that sometimes I give them a little bit extra of the discount to make them feel good. And sometimes because of the shipping fee is very expensive, so we know that we cannot take the product back to Hawaii. So in that case, we kind of ready to take the loss a little bit. Yeah, if the damage a little bit more like lot stronger, yeah, I usually refund the money to the customer, because in the long term, I mean they always coming back, because when they trust the brand, they will actually put more order and a bigger order for our company.
That's good. How do your customers pay you? Do they usually pay by credit card or wire transfer to your bank account? How does that work?
So for the from Japan, because of sometimes the buyer is not the one that not the accountant department. So usually when we have order, if they come to Hawaii and they make the purchasing in Hawaii, so usually they actually give us a credit card at our wholesale office, and we can charge them over there. So credit card. And if some of their system, like they have different departments, so they have to wire transfer money to our bank. Yeah, but actually recently, I think the Japanese buyers tend to use credit card a lot compared to 5 years ago.
Okay. Jimmy, how do you have the same experience? How do they pay you?
So for our export products, wire transfer, that seems to work the best. Although it gets complicated because then, the amounts, trying to match up the amounts, depending on time of year, it's a little challenging, but it's negligible for the most part. Our distributor is in the process of setting up a Hawaii bank, which would make things even easier.
Yeah, very easy. Okay. I'm going to finish. We're running out of time. I'm going to finish my questions, and then I'll ask the audience if they have any questions. Please type them into the Q&A. Also, Mark, Richie, if you have any questions or comments, please chime in now. We do have one direct question for Jimmy, and it is, how much did it cost to go through the whole testing and the process for your most successful food product in Japan? I guess that would be the sauce, Kilauea Fire, maybe.
We actually didn't have to do much beyond what our regular food requirements here require. So basically, it was a cost of we had to show them that we did our shelf life test, test for water activity, pH, and then of course the ingredients. I think that was done for under a couple $1,000. So
yeah, that's my experience, is that the basic cost is about US $700 per SKU, and then depending on your product, they might have you do the moisture test or whatever, and it's generally under $2,000 per SKU, but it can vary a little bit. Okay, thank you. Mark, do you have any comments or questions you'd like to add?
No, thank you very much, Jimmy and Nina. Very informative, very interesting. Just as an FYI, way back historically, I was actually a product manager at some point, but that was in kind of the technology industry. The question I have for you is, as smaller companies, you just sort of do it kind of by the seat of your pants, do the product development. But then as you get larger, you kind of have some sort of methodologies and kind of template and ways that you go about it. Are you, Nina or Jimmy, at the point where you already have sort of an established methodology if you're looking at a new product, kind of the way you would go about it, kind of documentation you would do, testing and things like that?
For me, I'm still at a point where we're fortunate to be where we're not necessarily trying to drive innovation here as far as creating new products. We're still at a point where we can still grow with our current product line. So what happens is sometimes products just kind of come to you, and you got to sort out what you want to do with it.
Right.
But at this point, I think it's starting with a good base and then growing on it. So like with the chips, we sell sweet potato and taro chips. That's the bulk of our business. Original flavor is probably 90% of that. So looking at it as a whole, it doesn't really make sense to develop other flavors specifically for the Japanese market. But one of the things we are considering is potato chips, and that's something we've been developing over the past year because there's a bigger consumer base for potato chips. You know, like so basically, it's just R&D, starting with potatoes, knowing what the end product, what we want it to taste like, and just going through the trials. And that was about a 1 year, probably about a 1 to 2 year process before we got it to the point where we feel comfortable putting it in packaging and selling it. And a lot of that was just taking it to, yeah, again, we actually tested it at the Hankyu show. We took them up there, tried to see how they did. They didn't do very well, so we were like back to the drawing board, you know. And now they are doing significantly better. And as tourism's reopening up right now, I can see our sales on the potato chips escalating because, again, more people are familiar with it. They want to try new stuff, but yet stay within the realm of familiarity. So trying a new Hawaiian brand potato chip is less stressful than trying a taro chip or a sweet potato chip.
Right. Just as an FYI, it's not completely analogous kind of food stuff versus, you know, technology, but what sort of you did at HomeQ was you really were putting together sort of a customer requirements document or things, because you said we wanted a certain taste. And so you actually were getting those requirements and what would work or what you thought would be a good product from the actual customers, and then trying to develop that into a product, which is, maybe you don't want to admit that, but I think there is a methodology to that thing. How about Nina? How about you?
For me, it's there is a rule that I call it 80% and 20%. Maybe like just same like customer or the product is the same. Sometimes it's 20% of your customer actually making the 80% of your sales. So the products also the same things. Like sometimes it's like just like potato chip with Jamie, and I have pineapple of Angel by the Sea. So I make the most sale in the pineapple, just one pineapple prints, yeah, more than entire the 80% of the product that I have in the store. So selective is very important for me. Yeah, for example, every time when I design, I will come out with one collection with 50 design, and I make the number like I gonna choose only 25. Yeah, the design, and then after that, only 10 of them, yeah, become on the floor to test, and then if 50% of that, which is only 5 design, will be sale very flying, and the other 5 will be no reaction at all. Yeah, and only the customer is the one to answer which is better than other. At the design, sometimes I think this will go good, but actually, yeah, when they come out, nobody interesting. I have the lucky thing that I have the 3 retail store, and right now I have 2. So that's the best. I put one of design there, right? The new design there for on the mannequin where everybody can see it. But if 1 week people pass by, nobody even care about that design, that is me no. Like I'm not even production. Go to production with that design. Yeah, so I think product test is very important, and that's why in the wholesale we have trade show. Yeah, that way we can show the products and pay attention on what they react, because Japanese customer, they don't want to if they don't like it, they don't say, oh, that not their taste, or maybe that not, they don't even say anything, but by their reaction you will see that they like it or not, and that's how decided to your production.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
So there's no further questions from the attendees. So with that, I'd like to wrap up today's webinar on product development for Hawaii companies. I'd like to thank very much Nina Tai from Angels by the Sea. This is where you can find her products right now. And then of course, look at the website, angelsbytheseahawaii.com. Jimmy Chan, wonderful products. You can also stop in at their facility and get the chips right out of the oil and the fantastic sauces. Just wonderful products. Please stop in next time you're in the area and look for the products. Also, I see them at Costco all the time. That's where I buy them. So
And
thank you to these.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Nina.
Yeah, it's I know the webinar is I'm just want to say like I'm the part of like the debate, and if without the debate that actually all the webinar, and I was for joined from 2015 until now, so there is a lot of things that I learned, and also I'm grow with all this program. So I have a lot of phone call from people who actually struggling to come up with the products. So even after these webinars, because I just want to give back to the community. So if any the business owner who actually have question about the products, so I happy to help to answer whatever knowledge that with 11 years that I have, so I will share with them.
Oh, great. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. So with that, I'll say thanks again to Nina Tai and Jimmy Chan. These are very, very busy people. They took 90 minutes out of their morning to give us some advice and share their experience with us. So thank you again very much for that. And with that, I will close this webinar of product development. Look for some upcoming events. Digital marketing is July 8th. Virtual trade shows August 5th, and then exporting to Vietnam is June 24th. I'm Rob Hack from the Hawaii Pacific Export Council, and thank you very much for attending. Aloha.
Thank you.
Aloha. Thank you.